I want to introduce you all to this panel, but I'm going to do something unusual because we have an incredible individual with us today who has to literally leave in 5 minutes, and that's why I was begging you to get back in your chairs. Kunal Sood is probably one of the most brilliant, intelligent people I know. He's really a modern Renaissance man, and with that kind of mind, who has done everything from being a chef, a fashion designer, he's pursuing a doctorate now, and he was one of the original curators of TED Talks. Now he works with the United Nations and pulling together things on the environment. He's worked with moonshot ideas, and I'm going to let him go into more what he's doing. But the main thing I would love to introduce you to, as you hear these different panelists today, is the concept that different things that we think of often as being separate, like economics or the environment or the sociological challenges we're facing, especially right now in the United States, where there's so much division between Republican, Democrat, Independent. If we can lose the labels and we look at the causes and the issues, they're often really deeply interconnected and affect each other. And if we approach those things with compassion, the way we can affect those when it comes to our investing is profound, and Kunal is doing a great deal of positive things on that. So without more ado, Kunal.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. I've done a lot of work to hopefully support and empower women in my life. I started out in India. I was born there, and when I moved to America, I always saw myself as more of a black Labrador of the family, and then I found my home right here in New York City. So New York actually accepted me. My own country was a little wary of who I was, and for the last decade, more than a decade, my God, I've served on the board of her extraordinary organization, and she truly is one of the most extraordinary women I've ever known, next to my mother. And the love of my life. There are a couple of extraordinary women in my life. What I want to share with you guys, I guess, is we live in a very chaotic world, to say the least. We're very divided, for most part, in many ways. But I still feel like there's more that unites us than divides us. And I'm not going to stand up here and talk about venture capital and what needs to be done in venture capital, because we all know what needs to be done there. I feel like the harder path is the inner work. I just finished curating and supporting an extraordinary event at Harvard called Sages and Scientists with Deepak Chopra, who I also support. Deepak and I have known each other for 20 years, and we've been talking about something that I believe is much more important than climate change, which is our inner climate. You see, we talk about these global grand challenges of women not being funded and men being this way, and the truth is, I don't think that's the problem. I believe that that's just a symptom, as the doctors say, of the real problem, which is consciousness itself. Our greatest global grand challenge here and now is our consciousness. Not climate change, not how much funding we get. We all know that we don't need that much funding in life, especially men. I do not understand why men chase money. And they say their favorite thing is, I have a wife I have to look after. I have a family I have to look after. It is the bottom line of a man. So for me, I believe that what's more important than funding itself is the consciousness, the intention, and the way we use the funding to transform ourselves, our world, each other. I feel like there's a way in which the impact we have in our lives is not measured by our net worth or even our network. It's overrated, this whole five people rule. The only person that you must focus on is transforming the self. Then you'll attract more than 5 into your life. And I feel like here and now, I believe the greatest thing we can do as men and women is to unite. Because when men and women unite, we can make the impossible possible, whether it's having a baby or even creating a home. I believe that the most beautiful thing about life itself is love. And I cannot tell you how women have taught me that more than men. I have learned from my mother how love matters more than anything else in life. Because you let go of all the material wealth, and I know today it's all about money and getting that money, and I empower you women to get that money, but please, for God's sake, don't become like men. Because if you do that, we're just going to have another world, a dystopian future of some sort, that is lopsided. So I feel like there's a way in which if women can become the new feminine divine consciousness that gathers in the space, and I don't want to get political, I'm not trying to endorse a candidate, but there is an extraordinary zeitgeist that's needed for a woman in the White House, for a woman in the United Nations, for a woman on the moon. There is this zeitgeist that's necessary, that these things must happen, not because it's a woman. That's just a byproduct. The truth is, it should happen because we exist as human beings to empower each other. And I believe that women are our greatest gift. When I have a problem in my life, even at 47, I still go to my mother. I don't go to my father. And women are rocks by nature. They know how to absorb, shock absorb. Talk about shock and awe. You guys are like the most extraordinary problem solvers of shock and awe. You take all the shock and you somehow find the awe in us children. I say children because I'm still a child of my mother. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that we were talking about the bystander effect earlier on. We've talked about so many things that matter. Perpetrators, victims, collaborators, and bystanders. The bystander is the fulcrum, right? Because here and now, I believe that we have a massive problem with bystanders. She told us to take a stand earlier on. It's very important to take a stand, but it's also very important to know what you're standing for, right? Because one of the most extraordinary things I've learned in my life, again, from a woman, modified from a man, but became a much better quote, that changed my entire life, which was, courage is not the absence of fear, but something more important, like love, compassion, peace. Will triumph fear. The brave may not live forever, but the cautious do not live at all. This is a quote by Meg Cabot that completely changed my life. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that today more than ever before, we must take a stand together. Not as women and men in their clubs. Boys have their bohemian club. Women have this club. I'm not saying don't have the clubs, but let's find a way to come together, to create together, and really solve for all of our global grand challenges so that the next generation has a real chance at life in every breath. They're living into a completely different world. I don't even know how they live, because they can't live without a selfie, because that's what's being engineered. Like even the kids at the UN now, they take a selfie, and that's what they believe is their self-worth, right? And I feel that's what I really want to focus on, is self-worth versus net worth, and make sure that your network really is conscious. I feel like that is such an important thing, and I know women will get this. If I was talking to a bunch of men over here, they'd be like, oh my God, right? They might do that. The message would be different to them. But I really believe that women are our future. I really fundamentally believe that. In my soul, I believe that there is a need for a paradigm shift, politically as well as geologically, that there's a feminine divine shift coming, and that's our only hope to flourish in life. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I have your back. So please see me as an ally, and see us men as allies, because we really love our women. We do. We really love our women. I love this one. I've known her for so long. I love this one too. I've known her short of it. I adore her. And I'm sure I'll learn to love a lot of you in this room too. So thank you for having me. I'm so sorry. I'm doing a summit at the UN, and I shifted things around to be here, and I'm still waiting for my ambassador to ping me. So I can stay here as long as he doesn't ping me, but once he pings me, I'm going to dart out that door and get to his office. So honored to be here. Thank you all for listening to me.
Thank you, Kunal. I also wanted to make sure that you all got to meet some people that are taking these incredible values that Kunal has espoused and putting them into action in the business world. So I would love to allow them to introduce themselves. Jasmine?
And so it's not something that we see a lot of women operate in, and I often find myself being the only woman on the board or on the cap table, and I love that we have more women that are doing these things, but some people are kind of turned off or scared by it, right? Because it's something that's not consumer. So how are you going to invest in that? And it requires some sort of technical due diligence and whatnot. And so what Catherine was saying earlier, hey, that's the GP's job. It's my job to go find these companies, do all the technical due diligence, go through all of their financial models, go kick the tires, make sure they have a go-to-market strategy, make sure their pricing plan makes sense in order to bring that into the fund and then for my LPs to invest in that. So there are ways to de-risk a lot of these private investments, and it's literally the ocean. Most of our businesses are private. So I've been doing this for many years now. This is my 4th fund. And prior to that, for the first 10 years of my career, I was a quant. So I did a lot of mathematics. I'm a very big nerd. So I was a quant on Wall Street, and I worked on the desk at Citigroup and Credit Suisse. And then the other part that I wanted to share with you today, because we are talking about a lot of the sustainable goals that were espoused by the UN, is I sit on New York State's climate program. And so what we do is there's a public policy side, which I work a lot less with, and then I also work on the private side, and they wanted a private investor to kind of give a view, hey, if we're giving grants for these new first-of-its-kind technologies, is it commercializable, right? Are we going to be able to take that out of academia and actually make a company out of it? And so the government, or New York State, wanted to kind of de-risk that for themselves. They wanted to make sure that private investors like us would be able to take some of these technologies and help them move forward, give them funding, help them commercialize and expand and scale. So I can probably talk more through that lens, since I feel like you guys got a lot of VC content today, but happy to talk about both.
Thank you, Mirella, and thank you, Marianne, Marianne always knows how to thoughtfully bring the right people and elevate their voice in the communities that they need to. So this actually today, getting to see a room full of women is a gift to me back for all of the work that went into yesterday. So I'll share a little bit about a couple of my different hats. So the first is, I recently pursued a PhD where I specifically focused my work on next-gen women inheritors, but looking at the similarities that they have with women grassroots leaders on the ground. So I have a deep passion for what it means to see both women that are doing the work from a nonprofit or business lens, but also those that are focused on deploying capital. So that's one hat. Second hat is I come from the family office world, and if you've met one family office, you've met one family office. But on our family, I was very much focused on our foundation, where we brought together a group of about 30 next gens that at some point would be responsible for their own family office, but we grew that to 5,000 next gens around the world. And I was really passionate at looking at how do we bring women that have been trained in the family office world traditionally on traditional philanthropy, how do we expose them to the world of investment? Because I think the panelist a second ago, which I thought was brilliant, shared, when women succeed, they give all the money away. That's true, right? But when women succeed, they can give the money philanthropically, but also then go invest in other women, or also go be a GP, or I'm an LP in a few different funds. So that's second hat. So come from a family office world, want to understand how to help others learn about that world effectively, research or education. The last hat, which I think Kunal shared this brilliantly, is I get to partner every day with my life partner and husband on a company that we scale that, yes, has a community arm, which is a part of what World Logic Forum in partnership with the UN was about, but also has a traditional technology SaaS for-profit model. And what I love about that synergy is that it really brings both of us together, and what I hope to see more businesses and partnerships of men and women drive. So he teaches me every day about LLM, what on earth ICP, ideal customer profile is, and all this terminology that I know nothing about. And I teach him every day on what good can come from when you bring communities together, what partnership looks like, how to serve serve a community, how to use this technology to actually come and serve in the world. And I really do think that if we drive more unity than we do division, we're going to see the world that we hope to be a part of. So those are my different hats. I also sit on a few boards. I mentioned I'm an LP in a few different funds. But when I come to a room, my job is to listen on how I best can help you all. So think of that as a resource and how best I can step into my calling every day. And seeing a group full of women asking these questions, what is GP staking? What is GP? What is LP? What is traditional philanthropy? What is venture philanthropy? There is nothing that makes me happier on the planet. So thank you for showing up and just being a part of that educational curve for the future I want to see.
You know, what is missing in that conversation, I like to talk about the sociological software, the technological hardware. We always talk about can we? It's the old Frankenstein thing, but we don't talk about how should we? Or should we, or who should be included in that conversation. And even when people and governments are aware of it, they don't take the time to inform. So for example, you guys have probably heard a lot of politicians talk about TikTok is bad, this is that, but they don't tell you why. They don't tell you that China's version of the CIA created it as a way to cause social distress intentionally with that algorithm, and all other countries with the algorithm in their country brings them together. All of you are nodding, you comprehended that in just a few seconds. Why is that not explained when people talk about it on the news? So there's a lack of taking the time to explain these concepts. And one of the things I would love to do is invite Chelsea to comment real fast on what you're doing with Logic Tree and how you're trying to help people to know what that process is and educate them.
So what I would say, a few things that we're doing with Logic Tree is Chris has innovated. Well, I'll start with this. I don't know too many people, actually ever, where their main calling or passion is logic. This man loves logic, has taken formal courses on it from Oxford, has dreamt about it. He woke up one day, January 14th, 2019, the same day, the same UN team I was working with, unbeknownst to him, we haven't even met yet, launched the first World Logic Day under the same premise, to Marianne's point. As we are heading into more AI, we need to be up-leveling our consciousness. We need to be up-leveling human intelligence. We need to be using media as a way to talk about expertise, right? So crazy coincidence, he started Logic Tree, the company, the exact same day that the UN did that. He met me 2 years later. I was like, well, to raise awareness, maybe we should have a Logic Day. I started looking online, I was like, holy crap, there's a World Logic Day, and it's the same UN team that I have supported and helped do a few different funds with over the last 6 years. So we reached out to them. They said, you know, we have a lot of people talking about this in academia and research. People are talking about AI safety. They're talking about how it's being deployed, but it's in, you know, quote unquote, the ivory tower. We need a partner that can disseminate this to the business world. I was like, well, I think I found your person. So we hosted in Austin, and Marianne supported for many years now, the largest World Logic Day in the world. It's now hosted in over 33 countries, but we are the only for-profit corporate partner. That is because we believe that this consciousness and raising awareness about how we're deploying AI equitably, how we're building our technology, who is building the technology. No, I don't think it should all be men. What are we doing about that, right? That needs to happen in person at scale, but it also needs to happen online at scale. So I'll loop it back to what I started with. He invented a logic syntax that's proprietary that he then started deploying and building various tools. So from quizzes to assessments to community platforms to our own version which integrates ChatGPT to rolling it out to other LLMs that it can be deployed, with the concept that anybody can take it and put it in whatever they're doing as a way to retrain our brains to think more critically. I'm going to pull back to Marianne. I asked Marianne, what is your biggest hope for the future? She said discernment. Discernment. When we roll out things like ChatGPT, when Snapchat without enough research rolls out things that are AI-oriented, that walks a 12-year-old how to successfully go hook up with a pedophile, because that's what it's optimized to do, right? Discernment. So what we're doing with Logic Tree is a lot of things. We have a business arm, we have a media arm, we have a community arm, but most importantly, it's that shared goal and vision and passion that my husband and I have. We both come from educators, to educate the world in person and online. How do we prepare for the discernment of the future?
My most precious project, which is part of my PhD, which is Who Am I, as in Who Am AI, okay? And it is a new project that allows us to go inward, because I believe the most audacious journey here and now is not one of omnipotent power. We can become omnipotently more powerful and still be like sharks that eat each other in the womb. Right? It's not the technology that buys us the character or the logic needed for a better future. It's building compassion, building the virtues and the attributes that allow that technology to become our consciousness. Because AI is data, we feed it. So if you feed the data, it reflects the consciousness, again, of the global society. So if it sees that society is a messed up space, right, then we have three kinds of AI. The kind of AI that we have now, thank God, is just the ones that help us get from New York to San Francisco or to Dallas and back, or not general intelligence, but just what's called basic AI, right? Then there's, of course, general AGI, which is everyone's excited about, which is the superhuman form of AI, where if you've seen the movie Iron Man, do you remember Jarvis? So Jarvis is your AGI. Okay, and then when it becomes Ultron, it becomes your ultimate nightmare. Ultron is the second endgame of the Avengers. As you can see, us boys love our little superhero stories. But it really, it reflects society and AI right now, right? And Who Am AI is really that journey to start cleaning up our consciousness, to create a better world and future where we have the audacity to change from the inside, not just look at the outside of how AI is going to make me omnipotently more powerful. Because, it's not enough to become really powerful. It's more important that we're proud of who we are when we arrive at that singularity, right? Because if we don't really curate the AGI, if we try to build something that is truly beyond human capacity without guardrails, and being able to protect us, I don't know. I feel like we're playing with fire. In fact, a lot of the times AI is literally called the new electricity or fire in the world. And it's here to stay, it's not going away. And I feel like the greatest opportunity right now is, again, for women to step into AI as leaders, because right now it's literally being ruled by a few interesting men. Right? Interesting men. And I'm not saying they're bad people. I just think, there was a study done many years ago by a dear mentor of mine called Phil Zimbardo. He did something called the Prison Experiments at Stanford while I was there at the Center for Compassion and Altruism as a fellow. And I found it so interesting, because what this experiment taught me and us is that even good people, inherently good people, can do bad things if they're put in the wrong circumstances or the right circumstances. Incentives. Sorry?
Incentives.
Forget incentives. Just incentives is one thing, but if your conditions are one of abuse, right, or the ability to abuse, you will abuse someone, right? So for me, I feel like right now AI is an extraordinary opportunity for us to actually elevate us, humanity as a whole, and I feel like right now we're at this place where AI is still, I wouldn't say an infant, it's actually coming of age, and it's growing really fast. So, too fast. In some ways, it could grow too fast. But again, that's where I feel women can come in as extraordinary guardians of this growth, just like mothers. You tell a man to take care of a child for even 2 days, he will have a nervous breakdown. right? And I feel like AI and new disruptive innovation and technology has to be treated the same. I feel like the idea of human potential, we have to reimagine both human potential as well as leadership while harnessing the gift of this new disruptive innovation that's coming in with AI. And how we do that is up to us. There's so many ways. I think medicine is probably one of the most extraordinary opportunities, digital biology. I think Wall Street is going to, yes, please.
It's so interesting to me, this thing about AI. I don't, and I'm always, because I've been in the digital business, I've always been able to stay on trend or ahead of trend.
Yeah.
I don't know how to grab this. So how are we supposed to process this? How are we supposed to use it for good? How are we supposed to use it in our business? Do we take an AI course? What do we do to grab hold of this?
So it's interesting you say that, because really speaking, I don't even think the people who are building AI really know how to grab it. All they know is they've been taught. See, it's like being taught to build something and you're good at building it, but this is something that no one really knows how to grab. In fact, even the guys who are geniuses like Sam Altman and Elon Musk, they all have no idea.
Wow.
And they literally don't know the future of where this is going. Most of the critics, like Jeffrey Hinton and all of them, are very worried because this could be the end of humanity. Ray Kurzweil, who's quite an expert at Singularity University, when I talked to him about this 15 years ago, not today, he showed me that he said AI is not going to destroy us. What's going to destroy us is someone who understands how to mimic AI and makes everyone so scared that they control that narrative of fear. And that fear, again, overcomes us. So again, I go back to courage is not the absence of fear, but overcoming that fear, right? So you're not alone. There is this way in which AI cannot be grappled with right now at the pace at which it could grow. But the more dangerous thing is what you spoke to. A few people know how to manipulate AI enough to manipulate the whole world. And once that whole world thinks, oh my God, AI has taken over, and they start thinking there's a world war that needs to start, that's the fear. So it's a few people that will control the narrative of AI and destroy humanity. And that's what we need to prevent from. It's not AI that will destroy us. It's a few villains, perpetrators, and collaborators that will use AI to destroy us. So what has to happen is really a new generation of extraordinary, audacious leaders who ask the question. This is a vulnerable question. I have no idea. Even I don't know. And
flag it. Like there's got to be a way. Like you tag things and you flag things all the time with numbers or business. Like I feel like there's got to be a tag.
there is a whole ethics committee on AI. Go ahead. Come stand up.
Oh man, the standing thing is rough. I think a couple of things. I want to give credibility to what Kunal was sharing because I can speak somewhat. I can share what I know, right? So in terms of sharing what I know, one of the speakers that we had yesterday, his name is Christian Elam. So Christian Elam is 22. At 19, I think at 14, he was the youngest to ever graduate computer science at Stanford. He's raised his first fund of $100 million. His co-founder and partner is Elon's son. He's now on a second fund. And so we're sitting here on a panel, and I promise this story will help elevate kind of some answers to your questions. We're sitting on this panel, and I'm hearing him try and wrestle with, because he's right. He's saying, to Kunal's point, he's talking to other people, the UN's doing a lot of safety, there's a lot of policy. So he's like, we can't stop the innovation. That's happening. And we can't stop the money, and let me tell you, and those of you that are in the venture world, you understand this. It's been really hard to fundraise, right? But not for AI. A whole lot of money is going into AI and chaos, right? So what he was wrestling with is innovation's going to happen. But what's happening that's interesting is the policy and the safeguarding, which is happening, doesn't know how to conceptualize it. And I'll give you this example. Imagine trying to create policy or telling the people before the internet came out how to make policy for social media. You can't, right? It's not effective. So some of this will be, how are we setting up the infrastructure and the communities and the experts and the tools now for what's coming and what we're about to face. Now, your point on flagging, and I'll be brief because I feel like Jasmine should be able to weigh in on a lot of this from what's going on the venture side. But part of what we're trying to do or roll out is certification or flagging on logic, right? We at least know, okay, these things are human created, these things are AI created, transparency. I think the more we push for transparency, the better we will be as these things are starting to deploy. And the second thing I would absolutely tell you is educate yourself. And if you don't know how to educate yourself, rely on people like us, like rely on the people that can get you into the room. Women need to be in the room of these committees. Women need to be in the room of creating these businesses. So that's my soapbox, but to answer your question, that's what I'm hearing or seeing, is not enough women in the room. So how do we who are in some of these rooms get you all there?
I want to take us back to Jasmine, because when people ask how can we do something, well, the fact is money talks. Money's what moves the world. So whether a fund that is going into supporting an AI that's all about greed and giving somebody who doesn't have the best intentions the power to do it, or money going to people that are actually taking a social responsible, meaning that you're thinking of people, planet, profit, all three of them equally, and prioritizing that those three need to be answerable to something as potentially powerful as AI, comes from the venture capitalists. So in a way, the venture capitalists are the gatekeepers of the ethics by which this new technology is going to come about. And I know that's overwhelming for a lot of venture capitalists. They're like, I didn't sign up for that. But the truth is, unfortunately or unfortunately, they are going to be the first gatekeepers of which way it goes. So having people, again, thinking people, planet, profit makes all the difference. So Jasmine, I'd love for you, I'd love for you to be able to talk about that.
I'm going to stand. I'm 5'11". A woman here just mentioned incentives, right? And so a lot of what we're seeing right now is this push and this pull, this kind of tension that's there, because we move really fast. We invest in venture because you can like move fast and break stuff and iterate and then become smarter, and that whole cycle is kind of part of the essence of the innovation. But even now, today, 2024, we don't have great regulations and oversight on internet, which is a 50-year-old, technology, right? Let alone AI that just came yesterday, right? So where we are seeing a lot of where we're moving and whether regulations and all that can catch up, that's going to be there. That's never, the people that work in government are never going to be as, I'm not going to say smart, but maybe well-versed on the new technologies as the people who live it every day. And those people are also not necessarily, they're capitalism. There's incentives to go work in venture, to go work in private equity, to go work on Wall Street, for example. And so you're not going to necessarily ever see that catch up. But there are a lot of people now, and I would think that there's a couple of us in the room that are what I would consider really thoughtful investors. We're not necessarily there to screw the founders for as much capital as possible, right? We're not necessarily, and so we think that there are ways that you can structure your fund, to structure your legal entities, to structure your incentive structure, so that you are supporting the right technologies, the right people that are going to do good in this world at the same time as making buckets of money for your LPs, right? And yourself, for example. So I think what happens then is we have to be in the room. I would love for more of those people to be women. I would love to not be the token one that's at the board table. But you're going to have to understand that we need the people that are smart, the people that know things. So let's say STEM. There's a huge push to get more women in STEM. And now we outnumber men in the engineering schools by like a tiny, tiny little margin, right? So it's like 50.5% versus 49%, for example. But those are the women that are going to have a lot of the tools in their toolkit to be able to speak really intelligently in these boardrooms, or to be the CEO, or to be the people that are writing the laws, for example. So we're kind of helping us get ourselves up there, but this is going to be happening at the same time anyway. There's no way to really stop it, but it's the incentive structure on how we're going to be able to try and control. And I unfortunately, I'm going to be like a little bearer of the bad news. It's very reactionary. right? So it's like how something is broken, and then, you know, TikTok has been around, but then all of a sudden government found out. I was like, no, TikTok has always been controlled by China. The government found out, and then it became like a poster child for what they're saying. But like, all sorts of things are controlled by the Chinese government. I mean, almost any company, like Alibaba or Temu, lots of people love to, like, they learned about Temu during like a Super Bowl commercial. All of these things are controlled by China, and yes, their algorithms are not foreigner or Western friendly. TikTok in China is all about like helping you find other people who love to like bake cookies. Like their algorithm is it's the same thing. It's just the data that you're inputting into it. So fundamentally, they are structuring their version of TikTok different than the way that it's structured for the US. Yeah, in America, right? And it's literally the same engine. Their same social media engine, still the little bytes. You can add songs to it and do little icons and whatnot. And so the people who are controlling that are a lot of men. There are a lot of men in China, right? We're not going to be able to filter that out unless the government is using that, but we can build something that's better, smarter, more sustainable, more resilient. So I would love to challenge us in this room today to take a more, and I know this is hard, and I know this is coming from a venture capitalist, take a long-term view. So what I'm saying is things are not going to slow down, but think about the bigger picture. Think about what the long-term view is and take steps towards that. Because at the same time, when you're looking at AI and you're like, how am I going to incorporate that into my Amazon store? Maybe there's tons of fake reviews that are coming in. How am I going to, you know, someone's booing me because they paid some guy in Manila to like give you lots of, you know, bad reviews or whatnot. But like that's like a very large problem across the entire Amazon platform, right? And so how can you take steps towards the long-term view? How can you build resiliency? I think at the same time, you want to move as fast as possible, but how can you be really thoughtful about that? So it's kind of like taking a breath, take a more long-term view, think about the larger picture, because TikTok didn't get built overnight, right? There was a lot of nefarious perpetrators that made it such that it could become a phenomenon here in the US. And so if we have the right people in the right places to be able to change some of that conversation, to re-navigate us on, you know, what we think is a very thoughtful way of growing our economy, for growing, you know, more of our influence, I think that would be really helpful. And I think that's something that really differentiates us from other people. So I'm not going to try and just say men are this or women are that, but I mean, it is one of our assets, and I think we really need to rely on that. And that's why women CEOs have better returns. Women CEOs build more resilient companies. They're not there to just do, you know, stick that marketing trend in there. They're really thinking about, hey, this is my 5-year plan, this is my 10-year plan. Those are the types of companies that I like investing in. Like, I'm not chasing the hype of Silicon Valley to get that pop. I'm helping you to build a long-term company that's really.
So we're, in conclusion, one of the things I wanted to share with you all, and I know we need to wrap this up, within the Mimnazine Institute, that's my nonprofit, we have what's called the Vital Signs Monitor being formed by Thomas Q. Johns, and it was resulted because one of our board members, Adolfo Izu Adri, represented the country of Mexico on the SDG goals. He actually helped rewrite their constitution to basically form, you know, follow the SDG goals. But while going up there, he would go up to the UN twice a month. He did this for year after year after year. And he called me and said, Marianne, they're throwing, well, 50 million do this, well, 50,000 do that, well, a million do this, and there's no research. Well, for any of us to actually invest, you do your due diligence. And you want money back. Well, what would you do for just the well-being of the world? You know, the SDG goals are about trying to make sure that by 2035, we achieve certain set things to maintain the quality of air, water, and life that we have. That's not even trying to get ahead of the curve and improve. That's maintaining. So, you know, why would you try and not do your due diligence on that? Well, trying to throw things into the air is not going to get us there. And what we have created, based on the work of Don Edward Beck, is with the vital signs, like your body has vital signs, society has vital signs. We can now measure, just like you have scrolling data on the stock market, we can measure scrolling data ongoing 24/7 on the environment, on water, on demographics, on all sorts of things. When you see things on the news and you're like, this demographic is to blame for that. What if you were able to go in and actually assess yourself objectively and say, oh, this is because there are tax incentives for that demographic to export those jobs over there. It's not because of these people that look differently than me, that believe differently than me. It would allow our society to come back together again. So I would love for any of you that are interested in talking about that. Again, it's coming from a nonprofit. But one of the other things I'd love to leave you with is that when you hear about AI, and I was talking about this with Chelsea the other day, is that there's so many people right now that just want to brag, I'm into AI, and you say, why? What for? What is your goal? Both what she did with Locked2Tree and what we've done with the Vital Signs Monitor was we saw a problem and we decided, looked at it and went, oh, AI gets us there. But now going into many family offices, and I've done that around the world, people are just saying it because it's a bragging point. We have an AI. And I've even talked to people that said, we put several million in it. What's it going to do? We don't know yet. So this is the danger of the dialogue. So I'm going to encourage those here. I think a place for women in this dialogue, and taking it not just in our social logical minds, as as in our spiritual life, almost as Kunal has said, to our consciousness, what should we do, but also into our active investing, pragmatic day-to-day life. And how do we combine those two things so we don't have a Frankenstein situation? Because in the story of Frankenstein, it wasn't the monster that that we should have feared. It was the scientist, because he didn't ask why, how, and what purpose. And we need to remember that. And interestingly enough, it was a woman that wrote that story. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you all so much for inviting me.